Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Jay. Um, I'm here to do a video on the 2020 presidential debate that happened yesterday and what I really thought about it, especially the tactics of Vice President Mike Pence. Um, as you guys know, I'm supporting Kamala Harris and Joe Biden in this election, and I previously supported Donald Trump and Mike Pence in the last one. But when I thought about this one, really struck at me the character of Vice President Pence and the differences between how he conducted himself in the 2020 debate now versus the 2016 debate against um, Hillary Clinton's running mate, Tim Kaine. Um, Yeah, in this one, he kept interrupting Senator Harris. He kept trying to speak over her. She had to say several times that she was trying to speak. One particular memorable time was when he talked about the stacking of the Supreme Court. Um, he said that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were going to stack this quote unquote stack the Supreme Court, and that they were going to add extra judges to make the courts more liberal. They but they're not going to do this, and she points us to the example of Abraham Lincoln, where this had been done in the past in the election in 1864, where Lincoln got reelected. In the midst of the Civil War, Lincoln got reelected. So sometimes, depending on how a president handles the crisis going on, they can become reelected even despite a crisis. So, but I don't think that's going to happen here because, again, depending on how you handle it. But um, Vice President Pence was accused of mansplaining in several instances, and it was true. He was mansplaining. He was interrupting. He was speaking over Kamala in a very condescending manner. And I feel like he was only doing this because she was a woman. If she were a man, he wouldn't have done this. And I know he wouldn't have because he conducted himself in a completely more professional manner in the 2016 debate. In this debate, he tried to take a page out of President Trump's playbook and figured if you just talk over people, that that proves you got your point across. No, it doesn't. The substance of what you're saying matters more than the volume of what you're saying. This is not a shouting match. This is not a rap battle. This is not 106 in Park. It's not verses. This is a presidential debate. This is supposed to be conducted with a level of decorum. Each person has a chance to speak, and the other person has a chance to speak. Um, President Trump always does this, so we know this is typical of President Trump. But Pence didn't do this in the 2016 debate and did it in the 2020, did it in this debate. And I think he only did it because of Kamala Harris's gender. Um, he, of course, is very socially conservative, unlike the presidents. This is why Trump picked him to fill out the other end of the ticket. We knew that Trump wasn't socially conservative, so he had to pick a very socially conservative candidate like him to partner him out, you know? And I feel like, uh, dude, this debate is more important. Excuse me, what? What? Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So anyway, I feel like this debate was more important than any other vice presidential debate, just just because of one reason that they pointed out: the age of President Trump and former Vice President Biden. With Trump, with both men being in their 70s, means that it's possible that Kamala or Mike Pence could one day become president, just given the age of these guys. But you know, so this is very crucial to see how each one conducted himself. But I thought each each candidate conducted themselves pretty well, except for, like I said, Pence's constant interrupting of um, her when she was trying to get her points across about several things. He just wouldn't allow it. They had a plexiglass covering, of course, due to uh, the current crisis in the White House with the administration and coronavirus. Most every one of Trump's top aides, from Kellyanne Conway to Kayleigh McEnany to Chris Christie to even Mayor Rudy Giuliani, have contracted COVID. Even President Trump himself and First Lady Melania. So there's a huge spread of coronavirus in that White House circle, and Kamala wasn't taking any chances. But I did notice something in Pence's right eye that was a bit disconcerting. I don't really know much about coronavirus. We all are learning more and more about the deadly long-term effects of of this pandemic. And but if an infected eye is one of them, the vice president should get that looked at, because if you look up at it closely, it is very infected. You know, it looked terrible, but very concerning. And the second thing that everyone noticed was the fly in the middle of the debate. A fly appeared on the head of Mike Pence, and the fly sat there throughout the entire debate. you know, it was a Democratic fly because it was apparently in favor of Kamala Harris instead of Mike Pence. Some even joked on the internet that it was the spirit of Ruth Bader Ginsburg come back in the form of a fly to infect um, uh, Vice President Pence. They were basically shitting on the head of Vice President Pence. As if it couldn't get any worse for the Trump administration. You have a fly appear on the head of a literal piece of shit, like like Vice President Pence. you know, yeah. So it was a funny thing, and it was something that a lot of people were discussing online. But a very serious thing was the way that he was very dismissive towards um, the Breonna Taylor case and police brutality in general. They always point to this jobs thing, and they try to deflect away from racism, instances of racism in the country, with George Floyd, with Jacob Blake, and with Breonna Taylor. When they go, oh well, Never before in America's history has there been a higher rate of hiring of African Americans than under the Trump administration. But so what? What good is a job if I'm getting shot in my own home? And they say, "Oh well, you're just feeding into the narrative of the fake news media." No, I'm not feeding into any narrative. I'm seeing things the way that they are. I'm seeing heavy police, more and more police. And lie and say that Kamala Harris is for defunding the police is totally a lie because, if anything, she's for tougher law. She was tougher as a district attorney in in in, in San Francisco than any other district attorney ever was. So she is definitely not for what he's talking about, far left or Antifa or even hardcore BLM. What she's saying is that Black Lives Matter and that these officers should be held accountable. She's saying the bare minimum. You got other people on the left that are more activist, more, um, you know, more progressive than her. She's the least of the progressives. She's not even liked by a lot of hardcore progressive Democrats. Um, you know, they're just voting for her because they want to see Trump out of office. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of hardcore Democrats don't even mess with her like that because of her record with nonviolent drug offenses. So I don't know. They always try to. I mean, you could be the most middle of the road Democrat, and they'll always try to paint you in the corner of like you're like a Joseph Stalin. You're like a far lefty. No matter what you do. A lot of people were saying that the the facial expressions of Kamala were a little rude, but I feel like the right wing has no right to really speak about rude and uh, disconcertious actions because look what Pence did throughout the debate. Look what Trump has done throughout all of his debates, interrupting, calling people names, saying wrong, wrong, wrong throughout the whole thing. Things that were never done in our discourse previous to that. You didn't see that with Nixon and Kennedy. You didn't see that with um, Carter and Ford. You didn't see that with none of these other presidential and vice presidential debates. Hell, the worst things got in the 1988 debate between Lloyd Benson and Dan Quayle was when they said that Dan Quayle was no Jack Kennedy. And that was just funny. And back then, even President Reagan criticized that as low class and crass. And that was really nothing compared to what we've seen in these debates, the name calling, the back and forth. And in other news on President Trump refuses to do the virtual debate that he has coming up with Biden. Of course, being that he was diagnosed with the corona, he can't do the in-person debate even behind the plexiglass. So he has to do the short one. The short one online, but he doesn't want to do that. He opted out of the debate because they will silence him or put him on mute, as they do in a Zoom call. But come on, there should be some kind of injunction that if you don't participate in the debate, you forfeit. Let's take it back to professional wrestling, something that I enjoy and I like. If a person is in a match and they never show up at that match, let's use Slamboree 1998 as an example. Slamboree 1998 was built around Eric Bischoff versus Vince McMahon. Now, it was obvious that because Vince McMahon was the promoter of the World Wrestling Federation, and Eric Bischoff was the president of WCW, that Vince wasn't going to show up at this match. So what did they do when Vince didn't show up? They counted him out and they counted as a loss to him. And this is how it's approached in all sports and all competitive activities. If Trump doesn't want to show up, he forfeits, and therefore he lost. He forfeited his obligations as a president. He has to be made to show up. Bottom line, Biden does too. Another thing swirling around in the news. Trump is saying that he's going to lock up Obama and Hillary, President Obama, Vice President Biden, and former First Lady Senator Hillary Clinton. Locking them up? Come on, man. Even William Barr, the Attorney General, knows that that's not possible. You know what I mean? Like, we heard that stuff in 2016. You didn't lock anybody up. Hillary is still a free woman. So I don't want to hear any of that more of that bullshit that you were spouting in 2016. And I'm speaking as a jaded Trump supporter. I feel like his core base, the ones that supported him in 2016, the ones that rooted for him, the ones that really went for him, which was his online base, he abandoned that online base and he shifted to a mainstream base and didn't really do anything for the online base. Yeah, anyway, guys, I'll let you guys go. Peace. Have a good night.